It's a deeply unsettling question, isn't it? The idea that the most monstrous people among us might not look like monsters at all. Well, that's exactly what we're going to dive into today, through one of the most disturbing cases in criminal history. It's a story that really forces you to look for the monster hiding in plain sight. We're talking about a man named Albert Fish. To many, he was known as the Gray Man, and trust me, as we'll see, that nickname is chillingly appropriate. His story forces us to confront this terrifying reality that evil can be incredibly, almost deceptively, mundane. You know, Albert Fish, he's a figure of such, almost unbelievable depravity. The things he did were so horrific that they left even the most experienced, hardened investigators of his time completely and utterly shocked. So this isn't just a story about a criminal, it's an exploration into the absolute depths of human darkness. So why the Gray Man? Well, it's because he was a master of blending in. He was the quiet neighbor, the unassuming house painter, just completely unremarkable on the surface. And that was the core horror of his case. This terrifying ability to hide a monstrous inner world behind a mask of total normalcy. To even begin to understand how a person like this comes to be, we really have to look back at his beginnings. You see, his story doesn't start with evil, but with pain, poverty, and some profound trauma. His childhood laid a foundation of darkness from which everything else would eventually grow. And when you look at his timeline, the path is it's tragically clear. At just 5 years old, his father dies. He gets sent to an orphanage where he faces constant, brutal beatings. It's here that a horrifying switch seems to flip in his mind. He begins to associate pain with pleasure. This becomes the poisoned foundation for everything that follows, leading to self-harm and deviance in his teenage years. And that twisted foundation allowed him to build a terrifying double life as an adult. He became an absolute expert at wearing this mask, creating a stark, almost unbelievable contrast between the man the world saw and the monster he truly was. This slide really captures that paradox perfectly. On one side, you have the quiet, polite neighbor, a simple house painter, a father to 6 children. But on the other side, a mind just consumed by sadomasochistic fantasies, cannibalistic urges, and even delusions that God was commanding him to commit these horrific acts. The disconnect is just staggering. This double life of his allowed him to get terrifyingly close to his victims. And no case demonstrates this more tragically than his most infamous crime, the murder of a young girl named Grace Budd. And this is the crime that would ultimately lead to his capture. In 1928, Grace Budd was just 10 years old when she crossed paths with Albert Fish. Just 10 years old. An age of innocence so tragically cut short. And just look at how methodically he operated. This wasn't a random act of violence. Oh no. This was a calculated, cold deception. He didn't use force. He used charm and trickery. He posed as an employer, befriended the family, and slowly gained their trust until they let their daughter go with him to a supposed party. It's a chilling example of how he weaponized that harmless appearance of his. For years, the case went completely cold. The Budd family had no answers. Fish had just vanished. But then, driven by his own arrogance and compulsion, he made one single fatal mistake that would unravel everything. Think about this. A full 6 years passed. 6 years of silence, of mystery. Then, out of the blue, in 1934, a letter shows up, an anonymous, horrifying letter. And incredibly, it was a detail as small as the stationery it was written on that finally gave police the lead they needed to find him. The content of that letter is the stuff of actual nightmares. It was a confession sent directly to Grace's grieving family, describing in graphic detail what he had done to her. It was an act of just unbelievable cruelty, but you know what? It was also the height of hubris, and it led investigators right to his door. So once he was caught, the full horrifying scope of his depravity finally came to light. He didn't just confess to Grace's murder, he confessed to many others. He admitted to cannibalism, and then there was the self-mutilation. A medical exam found dozens of needles he had inserted into his own body over the years, a testament to that twisted link between pain and pleasure, forged way back in his childhood. So you can imagine, the capture and confession of Albert Fish sent shockwaves across the entire country. His trial and eventual fate would leave a permanent dark stain on the history of American crime. His trial presented a really fascinating legal dilemma. I mean, there was no question he was deeply, profoundly disturbed, insane by almost any common definition. But legally, the jury decided he was sane enough to understand his actions. He was convicted in 1935 and sentenced to death.
Right up to the very end, his psychopathy was on full display. When he was facing his own death in the electric chair, his reported final words were that it would be the supreme thrill. For him, even his own execution was just one final twisted sensation.
And that brings us right back to where we started. The legacy of Albert Fish, the Gray Man, is this chilling lesson. He is the ultimate terrifying proof that the most profound evil doesn't always announce itself. It can be quiet. It can be polite. It can be hiding right there, in plain sight.
It's a question that doesn't really have an easy answer, does it? His case forces us to reconsider our assumptions about what evil looks like, and it serves as a grim reminder of the secrets that can lie just beneath even the most unremarkable surface. It really challenges us to look closer and to wonder about the masks people wear.